Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our first podcast of Condor Golf. My name is Steve, and this is my co-host, Craig.
Greg, how's it
What's up,
going?
dude? How you doing?
All good, man. All good. So yeah, we busy doing a virtual meeting between work times. So we're very excited to have this channel, give you insights into what's happening in the world of golf. We've got some cool topics coming up, and our journey into golf. Steve, I know you want to break par. I'm on the journey to try and break 80. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's it, man. We'll get into some of that stuff, but first, just who we are. So, don't want to waste too much time because I'm sure no one cares about us yet. But maybe we'll tell you what our plans are, and that's to create a. Sorry, that's an aircon. This is like first podcast. We're going to look back at this podcast and go like, remember how bad it sounded. But our idea is to talk a little bit about golf and specifically how it relates to us as South Africans. We are both Cape Townians, but we are, bleed green and gold. We're massive Springbok supporters, and we'll maybe even throw in a bit of rugby chatter later in the pod. But yeah, so we are keen to launch a podcast chatting a little bit about what's happening globally, but maybe specifically how that impacts South Africa. So, and then throughout this series, we'll look at building Craig's bag. Craig is, what's your handicap, Craig? Be honest.
Sure. Yeah, I think currently a 19.5 or 19.7 is my index. The lowest I've been is I think a 17.5. On your side, what's your current handicap there?
I just went up to 8.2. So I'm trying to
8.2.
get my handicap under 8.2 into the mid amateur champs at Durbanville next week. You have to be less than
Yeah.
8. So got to try and
That's
cut
quite
that.
quite exciting news. With the Durbanville Amateur Champs, that's 18 holes, not 36 holes.
Yeah, it's just 18. I'm getting too old for 36, man. I played a couple of opens. Well, actually, not a lot, just one or two. And walking 36 holes and being away from family. Craig and I are both dads of daughters, so that's also important to note. So we are just average golfers with too much belly fat, trying to lose weight and cut our handicaps. So yeah, so we'll take you a little bit through our journey. Not that that's important, and we'll take you through. We just, Craig, you just put a new club in the bag. We just bought you a club secondhand. What did you buy?
So I've got a little lob wedge now. I think it's actually quite important for me. My good friend Steve on that side. Let me use his one for quite a while, and it actually changed my game a little bit. With my short distances. Then Steve graciously sponsored that club to a young gentleman who had really not a full set of clubs, but he's playing off, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, a +1 handicap.
Yeah, he's a +1. I
Um,
met him playing at the Danny Beach Open, and Shay, man, this guy has no resources but oodles of talent. So we've kind of taken it upon ourselves, or to help ask people to help out. And Facebook community has been amazing. People just donating clubs, and so I'm involved from a school's golf perspective. With kids. I'm a teacher at a school, and I head up the golf. But we also we quite involved in the development of golf and reaching out to golfers who don't have the means. So yeah, it's just near and dear to my heart. So yeah, so his name, yeah, I don't know if I should say his name, but anyway, this kid is super talented. And if you have any clubs lying around, there's always someone that's got clubs in the back of the boot or the garage that they're not
Absolutely.
using. Yeah, obviously now we're at a place where we want to get him fitted, so we'll do a little video series where we'll go into the pro shop and with the fitter guy there, he said it's cool, we can film, and now we're at a stage where we want to get clubs for him that are tailor-made, excuse the pun. By the way, we're not sponsored or have any sponsors. If anyone wants to help out, we'll gladly take any sponsorship, even if it's just coffee, we'll take that. Both of us are big coffee drinkers. Anyway,
Yeah, we
so
are
yeah,
a bit of,
so
of
so we're
coffee
trying to
snobs,
help
yeah.
this kid out. So anyway, but coming back to your clubs, so I had to ask for that lob wedge back to give to this kid, So you were missing a lob wedge, and we were playing a couple of rounds, and I noticed so many times where I would just shout out lob 60. Where's that 60 degrees? So tell us what you
But
got.
you actually tuned me on the golf course,
That's
saying,
it. That's how
"Hey,
we do it, bro.
you need to get your 60. You need to get your 60." I'm like looking at all these other things I want to buy,
No,
rangefinder, another
no,
hybrid, and you're like,
no.
you need to get a 60 degree. So there's a lot of good guys on Facebook, on Marketplace, that are selling secondhand clubs.
Big time.
It's a matter of fishing around, looking around, and not necessarily just buying, but actually fishing around, doing obviously a bit of research. Has this guy got good seller ratings? And we were actually blessed to find this guy close to us who has I'll actually put his details in the description.
Yeah,
I'm sure you won't mind the extra business, but he's
big
literally
time.
selling secondhand shoes,
For
golf
like 300
clubs.
bucks. His shoes were like
Yeah,
300
I think I
rand,
paid
bro.
400 Rand for my lob wedge. It's a
What's your wait,
Cleveland.
wait? So you and I, bro, you and I aren't like, let's be honest, we're average guys earning low to mid salaries in education. So golf's expensive, dude. Golf is also elitist, and I hate that. So part of my mission in life is to make golf reachable to everybody. So I know that
Absolutely.
we are going back and forth in our pod, but one of my missions in life is, sorry to interrupt you, but like if you think of South Africa, how many good golfers we have in such a small country with very little resources, but still, if you look at the best golfers, South African golfers, say in the top 150, they're all white dudes. Really, let's call a spade a spade. Like if we look at our demographic in this country, there should be some people of color representing our country in the sport, but it's still very elitist and very reserved for the rich and often, like privileged white people. So it's something that's close to my heart to break that mold and give opportunities to everybody. We're looking at your lob wedge, Brew. Tell us what you still haven't answered my question. What did you buy?
I bought a 60-degree lob wedge.
Yeah, what 60 degree, Brew? There's a
I mentioned it was a Cleveland.
Oh, I don't think you said it. So
Yeah,
we were
yeah,
looking
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit at your bounce
Mentioned it earlier.
angle, which is the main thing. You're looking at a couple of like all the wedges there were for 400 bucks. So you could really choose, I mean, if you compare that to buying a new wedge, what is a new like Vokey wedge in South Africa? We're looking at like 2.5, 3,000 rand for a wedge these days. So it's almost 10% less. Now, obviously, with wedges, it's slightly different in that you want fresh grooves. But if you don't have a wedge in your bag, you can put one in there for quite cheap and get really good, reasonable results. Like it's not like you're gonna not be able to flop a shot with your, 400 rand used wedge. And then there's obviously also groove cutter. So we'll rock that groove cutter for you, Brew, and make sure that the grooves are biting nicely and you can check up on the greens.
So something that stuck in my mind when we were looking for a 60 degree is the rust on it. A lot of people might be put off by the rust in the sense of it's old, I shouldn't buy it, it's rusty. Why is this guy charging 400 Rand for like a rusted club? But you could probably give some insight into why it actually doesn't matter, or actually what the benefit is of having that club that's even rusted.
Yeah, so a lot of more qualified people than me have done a lot of tests on this. So I don't know if you're familiar with a brand called My Golf Spy. They're a really good independent company. I've listened to their podcast for many years as well. And so people have done tests to check whether this rust thing, like I know that Cobra has a Tour Trusty Rusty. It's a finish that's meant to rust, so it has a high iron content, and apparently, or the theory, or the whatever you want to call it, the theory was that the more rust on the club, rust is literally a buildup of corrosion. So the theory was that rust would help grip and produce more spin, but from the test that I've seen, it's minuscule, so it's not really a thing. It's, I think, more in your head. And sometimes something that's in your head manifests in your hands, and it actually does become a thing. But I just think that people will look at a rusted club, maybe generally, or someone who doesn't know, and think, oh, this club is old and terrible. Why? Because you literally had, it was so interesting because he had the exact same Mizuno wedge, the same raw finish is what they call it, but the one that just already rusted. So I've got trusty rusty that I leave in the garden throughout the whole year to get more rusted because that's its job and that's where it looks right, you know. But it was so interesting. If someone maybe didn't know, they would see these two wedges and go like, "Oh, they're the same price, but why would I get this old, rusted, terrible-looking wedge?" But it's made to do that, and some golfers will prefer that look. Yeah, anyway, just a bit of useless.
I think the one thing that was key for me when getting a lob wedge with a high handicap was the bounce. We had there were probably much nicer clubs out there that we could have gone for, but we're talking about 4 degrees of bounce opposed to 8 degrees of bounce. And for me, who's a high handicap, how's that going to benefit me?
Yeah, so obviously with bounce, it's by the way, I'm not an expert, so when we're talking about this, we're just average golfers thinking we know something about golf, but total nerds and love talking about it. But so the idea for me is to play a shot based on the lie, to choose a club based on the lie rather than the distance. Or obviously with the lob wedge, it could also be used when you need to go high and get over something. But in Cape Town, where we play most of our golf, it's lush and the fairways don't burn in summer like they do up in the Highveld and Joburg, or other places.
It's pretty green, yeah.
Pretty green. I mean, we say that, but we're going through a bit of a drought. But generally speaking, it's better to have a little bit more bounce in Cape Town. So it's probably worth having, I mean, if you can afford it, a bunch of the same lofted wedges with different bounce angles for different conditions. But that's taking it to the next level. I think in Cape Town, you kind of want a mid-bounce club in general. So Cleveland have the dots, the 1, 2, 3 dots. And then other new Vokey is the Titus Vokeys are great in that you can get an insane amount of. They've taken it a step further in looking at grind. So there's M grind, S grind, F grind. They're all related to a player. Like I think, M might be for Mickelson. So preferred like based on a preference of an actual tour pro.
Sure.
So that has a predetermined amount of bounce, but also a shape of the sole for turf interaction that produces different things. So I think we've gone super nerdy too quickly here. We might have lost like half our audience. But anyway, so that's
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's actually important, to hear what like we always say, you're the lower, I'm the higher handicap, and not everyone knows this information. A lot of people will go out and just buy a club.
Fair enough.
If you think about it, for me, I had a mixed set of clubs. From I just bought this club, this club. Some of it was the heads were thicker, and some of it was thinner, like more blade style. So yeah, I think for a high handicapper or someone getting into golf, I think this is useful information. Even the guy in the middle, and just to understand the bounce and why it's okay to get a second-hand lob wedge. In fact, you can really find decent second-hand golf stuff out there. So I think it's totally fine. It's useful information, and I think it's great.
Well, we'll definitely get back dive deeper into these things, but to not run too long, I think something we wanted to talk about is just what's happening in golf right now. With the PGA Championship that just took place this last weekend. It was, so obviously this, when you go down this route, you kind of separate yourself to pro, live, anti-live. But I'm quite okay to make a stance on what I believe, and it's okay that people don't agree with everything. But so Brooks winning the PGA, you and I were chatting a bit about this and what that meant for South African golf, because I think that's what's unique to our pod is how it relates back to South Africa. And we've got a WhatsApp group with a bunch of guys. We do fantasy golf, and by the way, we'll put that stuff all out. So if you want to join the Condor Fantasy pool there, Golf Champs run a really cool, easy to manage fantasy. That's not every a tournament. It's big majors and other big tournaments. So we'll put that stuff out there if you want to join us, and we can get some prizes and maybe
really cool prizes out there. On Golf Champs.
Well, just general from the public one. Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's worth doing it just for that alone. Yeah. So yeah, so just to
Cost
get
you
in,
cost it actually costs you nothing except your email address and the password that you want to
yeah,
put in there.
yeah. One
So
of the guys in our group actually won a year's supply of Strixon balls. Remember Neil? Neil won a year's supply
yeah,
of Strixon ball once because he entered.
it,
Because
yeah,
you can enter multiple pools with the same entry. If that makes sense. And
exactly.
yeah, so those became prizes in our pool. He was sponsoring Strixon balls. Anyway, so coming back to PGA, yeah, so you and I, we have this WhatsApp group, and there's a guy in there. I mean, I'll keep his identity anonymous, but asking like, what's the deal with Liv? Because we find ourselves rooting for the Liv guys to win. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Brooks Koepka fan, but I was rooting for a Liv guy to win because
Likewise.
yeah, because of, and he was asking the question why, and the reply was along the lines of it's good for South African golf, in my opinion. So Brooks winning validates Liv, whether you like them or not. They were written off the Liv guys as taking the bag, as Claude Harmon says. I don't know if you listen to his podcast. Claude Harmon, Butch Harmon's son, has got a great podcast. You should check it out, called Son of a Butch. He's Brooks's coach and DJ and Pat Perez. So he works, most of these players are on Liv. In any case, so a lot of pundits or media people have written them off as being just chasing the money, and they're not going to be able to be competent just playing 54 holes, and they're not playing the best players in the world, and they'll just fall off the face of the earth essentially. And the exact opposite has happened. So, and why I find myself rooting for Liv is, number one, for me as a South African, it's where our best players play. Brandon Grace, Charles, Louis, and now Dean are our best players. I mean, unfortunately, with the exodus of Liv, I've seen very few of the South African guys doing well recently in the PGA Tour. So in any case, I think it's really important to note that they're playing well there. They show them a lot as well. It's less players, so we get to see our favorite fans. I had the opportunity. I was very blessed to be able to go to Scotland last year and watch the Scottish Open and the British Open at St Andrews, and we got to see all these guys, and it was fantastic. But as a audience member in South Africa watching golf, PGA Tour, DP World Tour, we see very little South Africans unless they are leading. Sometimes they're second and third, and you don't see coverage of them. So it's so refreshing to follow Team Stinger. So anyway, the point that I'm making is that Brooks winning is good for South African golf, and maybe that should be the title of our podcast. Brooks wins for South Africa. You know what I mean?
Well,
what are your thoughts?
So for me personally, I wouldn't say I'm pro Liv or pro PGA. I'm pretty neutral. For me personally, and I think this applies to you, we just want the best for golf.
Yeah, we're pro golf.
We're pro golf. And so I think this will also come down to a demographic standpoint. Possibly not every American, but a lot of Americans will be against Liv Golf.
Yeah,
where
sure.
a lot of
That's different.
will be pro Liv. What I like about Liv is that they're traveling as well. They're not just necessarily staying in America. They've now gone to Australia, and that was a sellout crowd.
And please come to South Africa.
Yeah, we hoping. We actually spoke about this the other day. If they come here, you're almost willing to fly out to the golf course wherever they have it, just to go and watch. You know,
yeah.
And we're talking about some of the biggest players that we don't get to see in South Africa. Yeah, you know, we're watching them on TV, but there's a different vibe walking a golf course, seeing some of the best players in the world. I know you got to see Tiger Woods in front of you. You know, that must have been an incredible thing. A lifelong dream come true. Just to see him tee off.
Bucket list.
Brooks winning, I have no problem with Brooks winning. Actually, I don't have any problem with any Liv player winning. It could have been Bryson DeChambeau. It could have been any Liv player.
I was rooting for Bryson because he was further up, and I mean, he's also a controversial character. But I mean, even if it was whoever, even if it was a no-name brand liver, I would still root for them because, again, Liv being validated is good for South African golf, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the Ryder Cup's going to have a bit of an issue selecting Americans now.
Big time.
because we've got Brooks, who's currently number 2, most likely will drop off this weekend.
Yeah.
But they've
Which is
said
crazy,
if he
bro. It's so
remains,
crazy that he's there. I
yeah,
mean,
I
also what
mean,
we have to say
he should
quickly
be there.
about Brooks is that yes, we're rooting for anyone, but Brooks is currently the golfer to beat, bro.
Yeah,
He's got 5 majors. He's one of only 20 people to ever have done that. He's taken over Rory, the poster boy. And again, bro, I'm not against PGA. I love the PGA. I watch those guys, and I've
yeah,
got the app, and I've got the South African start so that they come first in my leaderboard, and I can see how they're doing. But my interest has definitely dwindled. Tonight,
yeah.
the live starts, and I'm going to have live on. Instead, yesterday night, I watched PGA, but it was because of Michael Block, and we haven't even talked about Michael freaking Block. Are you joking? What a
Yeah,
story.
Michael Block.
By the way, Michael Block, I showed my wife the little YouTube videos, which social media has blown up because of this guy. If you haven't checked it out, I mean, I don't even know if we have time to go down the route of Michael Block. We can maybe chat about him briefly, but so from a non-golfing perspective, that was good for golf. But what I'm trying to say is he fell off the page a bit last night in round 1. But tonight, I'm going to watch live golf. Why would you not have live golf on if you're a South African? And by the way, we still have free in our country. I think that they now do paid subscriptions in the states. Supersport's amazing. We get it for free on Supersport, and we can still stream it for free on the app. So I don't know about you, but I'm one of those weirdos who will have 2 or 3 devices open and watch more than one thing at the same time. So for me, I could have live golf open on my app or vice versa, and Supersport streaming the PGA Tour, which is great. I mean, it's awesome. So we actually have it really good. But I mean, guys in shorts, how long have we asked for guys, pros to be playing in shorts? Sunshine Tour was actually the first to do it because it was so hot at Leopard Creek the one year.
Yeah, Sunshine Tour being in South Africa, for those that don't know, it's basically our major competition in South Africa is the Sunshine Tour. But just to get back on Michael Block, I think what was great, why it's great for golf at that point was because he's almost the everyday guy. You know, he's a golf instructor at the course. He's and I think a lot of people can relate to him. He's slightly gone down now, based on his comments that he's just made, about Rory. But I don't think
I didn't see that. What did he say about Rory?
He was just saying if somewhere along the lines of if he can hit that distance that Rory hits, his short game should also be good. A lot of people took those comments negatively, where he was probably just praising Rory on how good he actually is with his drivers.
I don't see that as a negative
thing. You can look at it
I think
different
it's a compliment
ways.
to Rory.
People think, okay, you've played one, come in the top 15, and now it's gone to your head. I don't think it's like that at all.
No,
I think he just made it admiring Rory, because for him, look how excited he was to play with Rory. He was so excited, and Rory cheered him on. Like when he got that hole in one, it was a big congratulations.
Yeah, so we're kind of just sweeping over Michael Block. But if you don't know the story, I mean, if you're a golf fan, I think you'll know the story of Michael Block. But just for it's literally like the perfect storm that came together in 1 week for this club pro, make the cut, then goes to 2 over and drops out of the top 15 and makes a hole in one in front of Rory, slam dunks it, by the way, and the crowd went ballistic, and puts himself back to level par on a major tournament where level par was basically a good score, because I only think like 10 people finished under par, if that, less.
It was a tough course, tough day.
And then has to get up and down.
The cut was like +5 or something. I mean,
crazy.
John Rahm was almost out.
Yeah, it was US Open. It was closer to a US Open in setup.
Yeah.
But so then getting up and down, that last final hole up and down, no easy feat, and still a long 9-footer for par, I think it was, to crack the top 15 and get re-invited back next year. So it's just it's a Cinderella story, and it's beautiful. But I don't want that to take away actually from Brooks's win. You know what I mean? I think Michael Block's an awesome story, and it's a feel-good story. But we're going to forget about Michael Block and maybe hear his name again next year.
As I said, it's probably just, I think he's just relatable to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. No. Are you joking? And watching
Block, amazing.
Totally. Sorry to interrupt you. But also seeing him get that phone call from Charles Schwab, tournament director, saying you've been invited, and he's in tears, his wife's in tears. Footage, images of his local club where people are watching on the big screen and going insane. It's awesome. It's really
Yeah,
great
listen,
golf.
you also got I think a message after the major from Michael Jordan as well, like in
What?
like having
Really? I
round
didn't see
together.
that.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
yeah, a lot of things are happening for him, which is fantastic. I
Yeah,
think
he deserves it.
winning is great for golf all round. It's definitely going to have to put a question mark on the golf rankings, world golf rankings.
Big
They're
time.
going to
That
have
is the
to
real.
consider how that is done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much to get through, but so little time, man.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what's great
Well,
about podcasts is we don't have to only do one; we can do many.
yeah, we'll have to kind of start cutting it off there, like you say, and you'll just have to come back for more next time. That's what's the deal. So we've
Yeah.
got like a minute left. Just to finish off, thanks for joining me, everybody, and you, Craig. I'm amped to do this, get on this journey with you, and like I said, lower our scores and make our pant sizes smaller as well as we trying to lose weight.
Yeah, so we'll be on the golf course together doing various types of formats as well,
Yeah.
using different clubs, trying out different things, which is exciting. So yeah, subscribe to us, get all that info. We're not a tutorial channel. We just two dads having a good
Dad
time on the
bods.
course. Yeah, dad bods. So yeah, we
Cool.
subscribe to our channels. We'll post all the links in the description, and we will catch you next time.
Sweet. Cheers.